EstheticsEDU would like to welcome you to our Skin Science Dashboard, where we discuss anatomy, physiology, chemistry, and everything concerning the skin. Whether you're an aspiring esthetician or a licensed professional, this dashboard is for you. We've created this specifically so you can stay current on all of the nuances associated with our field. We have a lot in store for you this session. Grab your note-taking device and let's get started. All right, ladies. So now that we have went through anatomy and physiology, now we can take a deeper dive into physiology and histology. At first, when we were going over anatomy and physiology, we were mainly just talking about the whole body and how the whole body functions as one, how the whole body is interconnected. But now it's actually time for us to get a little bit deeper into our field of study, which is the skin. Okay, now there's two things that I want us to take away from tonight's lecture. The first thing I want us to take away from tonight's lecture is how the integumentary system lives up to its standards. You know, to be called integumentary, that is a big responsibility. All right, so the integumentary system gets its name from the Latin word integument. Integument means to be a protective covering or a shield, right? We learned that in anatomy. The skin, the largest organ of the body, gets its name from all of the functions that it has. Every function that the skin has is a source of protection. And we'll talk about the 6 primary functions that the skin has. But we also want to take a deeper dive into the 6 functions to see how the skin protects the entire body, but also protects itself. So that's the first point that we really want to hound in on today, how the integumentary system gets its name, how it supports its name. But then also the second thing that we want to take away from tonight is how can I, as an esthetician, help the skin and assist the skin in protecting the body and the rest of the skin? How can I advise clients on how to maintain these conditions and these different functions that the skin has? All right, so that is our takeaway for tonight. How does the skin function on its own as the body's protection? And then how can I assist as an esthetician? All of this, the only way we'll really be able to understand our role and the skin's role is to be able to understand histology. And a lot of people, when they think of these different subjects, anatomy, physiology, and histology, they don't really think that it's something that's necessary, but it is very necessary for an esthetician to understand, mainly because in order for you to do the things that you do, you have to understand how the skin is going to respond to the things you do. Applying products. How does the skin absorb and receive the products that I'm applying? How do I, as the esthetician, play my role? According to the book, you'll see the book tells us that as an esthetician, your main job is to preserve, protect, and nourish the skin effectively. The skin already does those things, but like we discussed prior when we were talking about anatomy and physiology, most people don't really give their body all of the proper materials it needs to do the things that it's supposed to do. So as an esthetician, sometimes we have to help, we have to intervene, and we have to educate people so that we can preserve, protect, and nourish the skin. The skin defends itself through many different ways. Two of the ways that it defends itself is one, interpreting and defending against UV, and then lastly, identifying the impact that our hormones and how it influences the skin. How do our hormones influence the skin? So these are the main things that we're going to be focusing on today. All of these different things, how it affects the skin, and then the different layers of the skin and how the skin functions. The integumentary system, just a quick recap on the integumentary system. The integumentary system itself is the skin, which is the largest organ of the human body. is mainly designed to protect. That's its main focus, to protect. Inside of the integumentary system, you have a lot of other different organs that aid in protection. You have the skin, and then you have some nerves, you have hair follicles, you have nails, you have glands. All of these function together to help regulate and protect the body. This is what makes up the integumentary system. And this is the system that we'll be strongly talking about in histology. This is the focus of the skin. Just like we mentioned before, all living things start at cells, right? Now, cells, they go from cells to tissues, from tissues to body systems. But what actually makes up the tissue that forms our skin? To answer that question, proteins is the main thing that makes up the skin. And as you read this chapter, you'll learn exactly the specific name of the protein that builds up the skin. But proteins, they come from amino acids and they form what we call peptides. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those commercials, those Olay commercials, and they have like these different building blocks as the product is being absorbed into the skin, and they're talking about peptides and they're talking about, all of these different things. Those are the things that help build the skin, peptides. And chemists have been able to kind of synthesize the building blocks that make our skin cells and our proteins. But skin specifically is made of protein, and we'll learn a little bit more about the specific protein that builds your skin. In addition to that protein that builds up the skin, like I mentioned before, your skin is supported by blood vessels, sweat glands, hair, nails, oil glands. All of these things actually assist in keeping the skin healthy. The most important thing to remember about the skin is healthy skin is actually slightly moist, is soft, is smooth, and is somewhat acidic. This is how you maintain healthy skin, or this is what healthy skin should feel like. And at the end of the day, as an esthetician, that's where we should be pushing our clients towards healthy skin. Even though skin is different on everybody, not every person has the exact same skin type, not every person has the exact same skin texture, but we're all pushing towards a slightly moist, soft, smooth, and somewhat acidic skin, and the different ways that may come. All right, so skin has 6 different functions. There's a lot of different functions that the skin has, but primarily it has 6 different functions. There's many different functions of the skin, right? The skin does a lot of different things, but the book specifically wanted to highlight the main 6 functions and how it aids in protecting the skin. All right, so the first function we're going to talk about is sensation. Now, of course, we all know that our skin, our body communicates in many different ways. I'm going to say that it communicates in a way that we don't really fully understand it or fully can't control, right? Imagine, I always give this analogy, God forbid, but imagine, let's say I was blind, right? And let's say I was cooking and, I'm cooking something and my hand gets too close to the stove. My skin, under my skin, there's what we call sensory nerve fibers. And that protects me because even though I can't, quote unquote, can't see, my body is able to tell the rest, my skin is able to tell the rest of my body when my arm should move, or when it's in danger of being burnt, or when it's in danger of being too cold, or any kind of sensation that might damage or impair my body. So if I'm cooking and I put my hand too close to the stove, naturally, my hand is going to retract because under my skin, there's a nerve fiber that signals my brain to let me know when something is too hot for my skin to bear. It's the same thing with stepping into, bath water that's too hot. Or for those who are like, into sports or athletic type of things, when people do cold plunges, you can try to sit in an ice bath, but sometimes your body is just like not used to being under that extreme temperature. And so sensation is one of the ways that our skin communicates with the rest of our body, telling our body when to stay away from certain temperatures. Or even on the good side, even on the plus side, when we respond to things like massage and how it stimulates the nervous system, telling it to relax. So, sensory nerve fibers, that is one of the first main ways that our skin protects us in the rest of our body. The second function is probably one of the most important functions of the skin. This next one is protection. So the first one was sensation. This next function is protection. And there's many different methods of protection under the skin. The first and most important form of protection is the barrier that the skin actually releases to protect itself. The skin is the barrier for the rest of the body, but the skin has its own barrier, and we refer to this as the acid mantle. So I'm going to read these little paragraphs here, and then I'll break this information down. It says the skin helps to protect the body from injury and invasion using many defense mechanisms. The acid mantle is the protective barrier made of sebum, lipids, sweat, and water. These components form a hydrolipidic film. It gets its name, I'm going to paraphrase really quick. It gets its name hydrolipidic because hydro is signifying that it's water, and then lipidic signifying that it's oil. So both water and oil merge together to create a film on top of our skin to protect against pathogens, to protect against UV in some cases, but to also protect against dehydration as well. I'm going to skip over this next sentence. It says the acid mantle has an average pH of 5.5. The pH is important to protect the body from pathogens and to regulate enzymic functions. So our skin is so intricate that it releases this barrier that has a pH, an acidic pH, to protect against bacteria. Something that we'll learn in the further chapters is that bacteria and different pathogens, they can't survive in acidic atmospheres. And so your skin, it releases a acidic film to protect itself from bacteria and to keep bacterial infections at bay while still maintaining good, healthy bacteria, killing off bad bacteria, but then maintaining healthy bacteria to help fight off all of those pathogenic, those little, germs and microbes that could potentially come onto our skin. I'm going to continue reading. It says the acid mantle is part of the skin's natural barrier function. The skin's mechanism that protects from irritation and intercellular transepidermal water loss, also known as dehydration. Lipids or protective oils are a part of the intercellular matrix. This is the fluid that is in between your skin cells, and they contribute to the protection of the barrier function. Damage to the barrier layer is the cause of many skin problems, including sensitivities, aging, and dehydration. So I'll give you guys two examples. Have you ever, I don't know if anybody has like sensitive skin. I think Miss Tia might have some sensitivities with her skin. But if you've ever gone to cleanse your skin or you've gone to cleanse a client's skin and they talk about having sensitive skin is not really a skin type, but sensitive skin actually comes from damage to your skin barrier. And it's because pretty much maybe we use the wrong products. Maybe we over cleanse our skin, over exfoliate our skin. And so the barrier that our skin naturally produces is stripped. And so anything that, starts to reside on our skin or anything that we apply onto our skin, it kind of makes our skin feel irritated, or it makes our skin feel inflamed or agitated, and it's because of the barrier being stripped. And so the barrier, damage to the barrier, is the main cause of dehydration. It's the main cause of sensitivity, and it's also the main cause of aging as well. There's a myth that people have that's actually quite true, but it's not because of the person, but rather it's because of the skin. So the myth is, I know you guys have all heard this myth. A lot of people, they say black don't crack, right? And that is statistically, that is a true statement. But the reason why European skin may age faster than skin of color is because of the barrier that our skin has. And it's because of a lot of other things that we'll talk about as well. But apparently, skin of color releases more oil. Apparently, skin of color is a little bit more oily. And so, oily skin results in slower aging. There are some European skin types that have um, oily skin, but usually fair skin, like fair, we call those Fitzpatricks. So people who have a Fitzpatrick 1 through 3, which you guys will learn about soon, they tend to have drier, thinner skin, and it's because of the oil that the skin releases. So technically it is a myth, but it's gearing towards the true side, that skin of color ages slower, and it's because of the barrier. So if I can narrow all of this down together, because I know I gave you guys a lot just now, your skin releases a barrier called the acid mantle. The acid mantle is made of water, is made of oil from our sebum, lipids, sweat, and then other water that your skin absorbs. This protects our skin, and when it's damaged or impaired, it leads to aging, it leads to sensitivities, and it leads to dehydration. All right. So the next form of protection is melanin. Another myth that we hear people say a lot is that European skin types do not produce melanin. And that is very incorrect. They produce melanin, but people of color, we stimulate more melanin production for our protection from the sun. All right. So melanin is in every person, whether it be in their eyes, whether it be in their hair, or whether it be in their skin. Melanin is something that we all have the capability to produce. Some people don't produce it. And in that case, that is a disorder. They call that albinism, right? Those people who could be African American, could be, of a different descent, that creates melanin or that releases a dark pigment, but they have that disorder that doesn't allow their melanocytes, which are the cells that produce the pigment, to stimulate and to release melanin. All right. So melanocytes, these cells are what release melanin. And your melanin is what protects you from the sun. It protects your eyes from the sun. So that's why some people have dark brown eyes. That's melanin. And why some people may have blue eyes. That is not the same kind of melanin, but it's still a form of melanin. It just doesn't protect somebody with blue eyes. they would not have the same protection as someone with dark brown eyes. That dark brown pigment is what protects from the sun. Someone who has dark hair, that is a protection, a form of protection. So your melanin, in all the different ways that it's produced, protects you from the sun. And of course, the book will talk a little bit more about that as we get closer into the different layers of the skin. All right, so to recap, your skin has its own protection. It's called the acid mantle. And then it also protects itself through the release of melanin. Another way that your skin protects itself is through something called epidermal growth factor. And so this actually speaks to how the skin can heal and repair itself. So whenever we experience wounds, whenever we experience injury, whenever we experience infection, your skin not only protects itself, but it protects itself and heals itself through what we call epidermal growth factor. So all of these three ways is one of the ways your skin functions by protecting itself. All right. So your third form or your third function of the skin is heat regulation. All right. Your body goes through what we call thermoregulation. So we mentioned this in anatomy. Your body has an average temperature that is set at 98.6. Whenever we have a fever, they usually base it on 98.6. If it's anything above 98.6, then technically your body is facing a fever, right? So your body, specifically your skin, goes through thermoregulation to maintain that temperature. It does this through a few different methods. The first way it keeps up with thermoregulation is through evaporation. When we sweat, that sweat it evaporates off the skin and it cools the skin down. Perspiration, of course, is sweating. So whenever we're jogging, whenever we're exercising, your skin sweats or it excretes perspiration. It evaporates off the skin and that cools it down. It's like a two-step process. The release of sweat, which is perspiration, and then the evaporation off of the skin. It then warms the body up through radiation. So whenever you're shivering, that is your body's way of radiating and generating heat. And then lastly, insulation. When bears hibernate, apparently, they eat and they store up this fat so that it can insulate them during hibernation. And of course, you guys know we're mammals. We don't do that specifically, but we actually insulate heat through our fat. All right. So this is one of the ways, one of the functions, your third function that the skin has. It heat regulates, so it regulates the body's internal thermostat. Your next two, these are two separate ones, but we can kind of merge them together. Excretion and then secretion. Everybody always wonders, like, what's the difference between excretion and secretion? I believe in anatomy, they said that your sweat glands and your sebaceous glands were both excretory glands because both oils and sweat leave and exit the body. But in this chapter, they actually separate the two. Excretion specifically excretes sweat through your sudoriferous glands. And the reason why excretion or sweating is separate this time around, because sweat technically isn't reabsorbed back into the body. Once your body perspirates, it evaporates off of your skin and then, it's gone again until your skin perspires again. But with secretion specifically, When your body releases sebum or oil, it's reabsorbed back into the skin, back into the hair, back into the nails, back into the scalp to nourish those areas. So excretion is the complete removal of sweat, but secretion is the reabsorption of oil. It's the release and the reabsorption of oil from your sebaceous glands. I can't zoom in, but I don't know if you guys can see this. I have circled here. This secretion of sebum is what keeps our skin hydrated. As you guys know, oil and water, they don't mix. So one of the ways that we keep the water in our skin is by insulating it under the oil. So this is what prevents the barrier damage. This is what prevents dehydration in the skin. This is what prevents your skin from being exposed to all of those outside elements, the secretion of sebum. And then the last function that we'll talk about tonight is absorption. And absorption is probably the second most important function, in my opinion, because as an esthetician, we rely on the absorption. We rely on the absorption of products. We rely on the absorption of sebum. We rely on the absorption of the many different things that our skin absorbs and the different products we apply on the skin. But the skin absorbs more than just products. According to the book, the skin absorbs chemicals, it absorbs hormones, it absorbs moisture, obviously, it absorbs oxygen, and it even absorbs vitamin D. When we go out into the sun, your skin absorbs vitamin D and then it synthesizes it and produces it so that the body in general can convert that into many different things like hormones and biochemicals that the skin uses to keep the body functioning. But then when we apply different things onto the skin, our skin selectively absorbs it and then uses it for its own good. So serums, moisturizers, oils, and the different toners and different products that we apply onto the skin, your skin selectively absorbs that. And it absorbs it through two different methods. One method your skin absorbs is in between the cells. So I wish I could paint this image for you guys. In between your skin cells is oil. So your skin absorbs things into the intercellular matrix, which is that oil that sits in between the skin cells, kind of like cement. Imagine like a brick wall, right? And the different solutions that they have in between each brick. That's kind of what oil is like to the skin. And so your skin receives products through the intercellular matrix, through that oil that sits in between the cells. And then your skin receives products through the cells, which is where we find all of the protoplasm and all of the nucleoplasm that's inside of the cells. So those two methods of absorption is intercellular, which is between the cells, and then transcellular, which is right through the cells. I know we've been seeing a lot of oil cleansing lately. That actually supports the claim of oil attracting oil. Usually when people cleanse their skin with that oil, they believe that the oils in the skin is absorbed through the other oil. So oil-based products, believe it or not, they actually penetrate the skin a little bit better because of the different oils that's found in between the cells. It's a little harder for water-based products to get into the cell because of all of that oil that's surrounding the skin cells. This is where we'll stop this discussion of the functions of the skin. There was so much to unpack under those 6 functions, and so stay tuned for more. We'll be talking about the layers of the skin in the next episode. And if you're reading along with your My Lady or Pivot Point textbooks, you'll be able to thoroughly unpack this information and understand some of the things that we talked about tonight as you follow along. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. We love hearing feedback from you all. Stay tuned for more educational information. Stay blessed. We'll see you guys next time.